Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 9 of the Mercuranians Podcast. My name is Stella. Today is Saturday, May 14th. It's 11:25 p.m. Oh, a.m. a.m. Pacific Standard Time. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm
Yeah,
good. But I'm
yeah,
exhausted. But I'm good.
yeah. Relatable. Just between like everything. Cam, by the way, this is Cam, everybody.
I said my did I not say my name?
No, it's okay
Hi.
though.
That's how tired I am.
Yeah, we're both kind of out of it today.
And that's why we're just gonna be talking about fate and free will, baby.
Yeah, this is gonna be just like a casual discussion. This
Mhm.
is one of the hot topics in the astrological community. And like, I think it's really reasonable to say that like your philosophy will change because almost everybody's philosophy does change or evolve throughout their journey. So this is where we're coming from now at this point in our lives, but maybe 10 years from now we'll look back at this and shake our heads, who knows.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, it's like we don't get the answer to this one. This is the one that's like, you know, it's set up to be just barely not clear enough. It's like supposed to be just mysterious enough that we don't know. So
Right. So I mean, we're probably gonna both jump around between like a more deterministic like point versus a more like free will point.
mhm.
Um, Personally, I land like at this point in time, I don't want to say like right in the middle. I want to say maybe like 60% determinism and then like 40% like what you can do with it. And like even
Mhm.
that 40% can be limited. What about you?
I actually say 50-50.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Okay.
Because I
Okay.
think they coexist
I
as
agree with that.
antithetical to the whole concept of that as it is. I think I think there's determinism and free will,
I agree. I agree.
right?
Well, one thing with the natal chart is that like you are born like with, if we're taking like a psychoanalytical view, you're born with these traits that will make you more or less likely to react to events based upon your own traits, and how you react will definitely factor in to the outcome.
Mhm.
So go ahead.
Um, yeah, I mean, like when I just think about if we're able to predict, right? If you know your chops, you know what you're doing. Not saying I do, but like if we are using these systems right, as they've been passed to us down for generations, we should be able to predict with great accuracy, right? And I mean, Abu Mashar goes down to talking about not just the years, not just the months, not just the weeks, but the days and the hours and the minutes. He talks about how to go there. But it's because like in our day-to-day, endeavors, when we're faced with decisions or opportunities that kind of come up out of nowhere, the thing is, it's like if we can zoom in astrologically to observe those minute moments of time, then it has to be set up that something happens in that time. The question is just how much does our human consciousness interact with the decision in the split moment of how that moment crystallizes into materiality. Do you know what I mean?
I do. So like how it's almost like Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah, that's the whole
Where
thing. It's like it's
yeah,
both, but it's
right.
neither.
Right. And so like part of the issue though also is that like if you believe that the planets themselves are gods, like are you going to obey a god? Are you going to follow a god's like wishes? Like some people have more of that attitude where it's like what happens to me is meant to happen to me and these are the wishes of powers that I have no say in. But
Hmm.
then on the other side of the coin, it's like, well, like you are your own entity. Like when people say that they can create like whatever reality they want, like it is very, very true.
Hmm.
Not only in the sense of like hard work and like determination, like this is not like a capitalist, like pick yourself up by your bootstraps thing. This is like having genuine faith in yourself and your ability to not only reach but create your goals will lead to that attainment.
Hmm.
And so, like, but then when it gets to these like anomalous events, like let's say you're walking on the side of the road and like you get hit by a car and like you had absolutely no influence, you had no power over that situation. But the power you did have was the choice to put in earbuds when you went on your walk. Now, if you wouldn't have put the earbuds in, would you have heard the car coming? Would you have been able to move out of the way? You know, so it's like at a certain point, your free will never quite be ahead of fate, you know? Like you cannot be one step ahead of fate. That is impossible. But what you
Hmm.
can do is be in the moment with fate. And like that is where it kind of gets put into your own hands. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's beautiful how you said it because like this idea of that intersection between future determined events and being in the present moment with those, like you can have your, your ZR periods printed out with you and walk around with them, right? And there's something so like ephemeral about like, having each moment in front of you and then watching it happen. But like it's like I said before, and kind of what you're saying, it's that intersection of our consciousness with the moment as it's determined. And I think it really speaks to the interaction of like just the concepts of like fortune and spirit in general. And like fortune, the lunar archetype representing just the physical world as it manifests randomly, but really, we see that it's all coming into generation exactly as it's supposed to. But from our perspective, it's like things just happen that we don't observe, right? That's just the illusion of physicality, circumstances out of our control. And then on the other side of that, we have like spirit, the lot of spirit, that archetype of the sun, which is about how we um, infuse our consciousness into physicality to create and to supersede what fortune sets out for us. And I think that presence in the moment where is what allows us to balance both of those things. So you can walk around with your ZR periods minute by minute and say, okay, here's my fortune, but like, here's my spirit. Like I know, maybe in 20 minutes I'm gonna have this like level 6 LB or something crazy. Like if you're really going like down to like trying to really track shit with this. But like in that moment, you have a decision to make. And even if retroactively you realize like, well, I had to have made that decision because I couldn't have made any other. And I ended up making that one for a reason. It makes you wonder though, like, even if we know the future, how does that like, does that now, is it changed because now you know it? And now that predetermines something because you've read ahead, or were you always going to make that decision? And it's like that kind of question is where it's like we just don't know the effect of that. It's just infinite possibilities.
Exactly. And like the thing is that like every single choice you make impacts where you end up. It impacts your fortune and the cards that you are going to be dealt.
Mhm.
And so a choice as insignificant as putting earbuds in on your morning walk that you might do every single day, but
Right.
it just so happens that you've got a particularly tough Mars transit to your first house. Like, then this day you got hit by a car, but you were the one who put the choice to put the earbuds in. And that's something you wouldn't think twice about, like if you go on that walk every day, but that's
Right.
still a decision, the decision to get into a car and drive. And like, what coordinating forces put you in the exact path of the car, put the driver in the wrong mindset to be able to drive, or made them spill their coffee and they were distracted and lost control of the vehicle, like whatever it may be. Because, and I think that part of the issue with like a lot of these discussions
Mm.
is that like humanity and humans are seen as like independent of one another,
Mm.
when like to a degree we are, but like that independence can only go so far. Like you can be independent in what you want to learn about and like where you want to go, but like somebody has to teach you those things. And like that is all written in the stars too.
Mm.
I feel like that just got like super circuitous and like drawn out. But
It's just this conversation. We don't have structure here.
I know we don't
We
have
can't do like
structure.
this.
I hope that you guys can follow this. Like,
But like what you just said though really made me think about like if we just go back and think about like determinism as it is, right? Like cause is followed by effect. And
mhm.
that's a thing that happens. So it creates an infinite chain of causally linked events, and there's no break in that chain. So it makes you wonder, if every reaction is set out, it has to be followed by an effect, and that has to be determined by what kind of cause it is.
Well, exactly. And then every effect is simultaneously a
A
cause.
cause. Mhm.
It's,
It's like,
go ahead.
well, I mean, I don't know. It's just crazy because it just makes you think about like the mechanism like of time as it is, like especially when you're thinking about like different time lord systems, like this idea of like perfection of just like moving around the clock, or like zodiacal releasing when we're following the planetary cycles in like a perfection kind of manner, and then getting this loosening of the bonds, right? This like reversal or this total change. And it's like, it's almost built into the timing mechanism that there's an unexpected, or at least, okay, in the ZR context, if you're not familiar with that, there's this weird part of the sequence of the Time Lords where it just does this crazy reversal. And that if you weren't told that the technique works like that, you would have never guessed that the sequence has that kind of algorithm written into it. It's just bizarre. And so
Right.
it makes you wonder though, as we're talking about this causally linked events that happens throughout our life, like what intersection does that LB have with like fate as it is and our consciousness as it is? Like, is that representative in some way of like complete, like a reversal of like what we have expected? Like, is the loosing of the bond like a symbol of like the intervention of fate in some way? Or is it about, I don't even know. Like, I mean,
Right. Well, I mean, and like when you get into timing techniques, it can really like trip you up, because, and especially with like non-astrologers, especially when like we get into like ZR, like we've usually had exposure to transits, perfections, some other things, and you can see these themes. But then
mhm.
you look at something like zodiacal releasing or primary directions, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, like
Monthly
what?
perfections,
Yeah.
getting down into like L6, L7,
um
and now
what
we have
were
L8
what were you
levels of
telling me?
zodiacal releasing. Like literally we're talking looking at like second
What were you
micro.
telling me about like hitting like Aries periods and like your Aries sibling would like come
Okay,
in?
I have to say that was terrifying, because I was the day that the creator or the main developer of AstroSeek added the 8th level for zodiacal releasing. I was sitting in my room watching it happen. And what I noticed as I was going through L6 and L7 periods, just like I was going through just going through the past and like looking at my camera roll, what I was doing, it would be like on an L7 for like a couple minutes or an L6 for like an hour or something. And like the duration of the time that it was that sign was activated, say it was like Leo, I was with a Leo. And then what ended up happening that morning was I was literally just in my bedroom and I was home with my sister, who's a Cancer sun. And literally for these L8, like second long periods, it happened 3 times. She knocked on my door right as it went to a Cancer L8 period. And I was like, what is going on? Granted, one of the times it was in, I think it started in Leo. And by the time she was in my room, it was in Cancer, but still like, we're talking like seconds at a time. And they were all just like super short. Like it was about my laundry. Both times, or like 2 of the times it was about my laundry. You know, it was just like super random sibling knock, knock. And then it was Cancer on the L8. And I could have
Right.
kept going. Like I could, like, I'm sure you could just keep digging. And I mean, going through all my photos, like I imagine it's just all written there.
Oh, yeah. When I found out about ZR, I went through like my Snapchat memories. I actually, little tip for any astrologers out there, if journaling is not your thing, not my thing either, I do little like video, like, guess what happened to me today around noon? And like, I'll like describe the situation, save it to my Snapchat memories. And then if I'm looking for a transit, I just figure out when that last transit was, or like some similar astro weather, go into Snapchat memories, find the date, bam, and it doesn't use data on your phone. Anyways, I mean storage on your phone.
Life hack,
Yeah, well,
astro hack.
yeah, vlogging. What was I? Where was I? Oh, when I went back and looked at those, I was like, what the hell, dude? Like, this is tripping me out.
And this
Like,
is just ZR. Like there's so
yeah,
much more than this. Like this is just one technique, but it's
exactly.
powerful. Like, and for a while I was like, I wasn't using ZR as much because it didn't have as much development throughout the tradition because it was pretty much like Justin Valens, like just one author like 2000 years ago, and it didn't really get traction after that. So there was a lot of other ones that did. I was mostly working with those because they all work really well together as a system, but like ZR standalone, it works really
Right. And like,
well.
it might not be able to tell you like what exactly is going on, but it's going to be like something is going on now. Like,
I mean, I think it can, because when you get like specific enough, looking at like, basically what I feel like is if you can look at your past periods, it's a cycle. So like if you look
right.
at your old, you know, the last time you were in a Leo L2 for like a year or something, you know, you can think about what was going on that year and it's going to happen again somehow. For some reason, just ZR as a self-contained entity, it seems like the cycles just link like crazy like that.
Right. And like, okay, something that like this is a little bit tangential, but something that really like frustrates me about like skeptics is that like historians will sit there and talk about how weird it is that history just like repeats itself like over and over again, like in different parts of the world. And it's like, I wonder, like my
Hmm.
stepdad has gone through the same exact sequence of events with a career, and it has lined up with his Saturn cycles both times to a T. Like it is insane. And he's just like, "Oh wow, like that's in astrology." And I'm like, "What do you mean? Oh wow." Like what are you talking about? Like this is crazy.
I
And it
know.
just like it baffles me that like people make political claims and like stock market predictions and like predictive statistics were literally born like from astrology. Like that literally was it came from
Yeah.
astrology. And it is the same exact principle, just with the actual experience and not with a constant that is relating to the experience, with the planets being the constant for astrologers. And like, when you blend the subjective experience, which is like your personal experience or like life on Earth within Earth, compared to like the objective rhythm that we witness in the planets, like you can really hone in on what's going on.
Mhm.
And so, like, just because you're aware, though, doesn't mean that you can influence.
Right.
And like, I think every astrologer has attempted to avoid like some kind of like something, and like it just did not work. Like Mercury retrograde, I was so prepared. I had all my ducks in a row. I knew what I was doing. I was ready. I had exams that day and a presentation. I was feeling fine. I'd gotten my schedule worked out. Lo and behold, I went to the wrong building, ended up having to run across campus. Everything, my zipper came open. I had like 100 yards of trails, of pen trails behind me. I had to go pick them up. I had to go like talk to my professor, explain what happened because my email wasn't sending, and then like run all the way back across campus. I was 10 minutes late for my next exam. And like I thought I was set.
Oh.
But I wasn't. Like there was still that one little thing. But then at the same time, like I prepared myself, but I did not prepare myself for Mercury retrograde. I had prepared myself for the things that I needed to get done in the sake of avoiding retrograde mishaps.
Mhm.
I did not plan my schedule around these retrograde mishaps that I knew were likely to happen.
Mhm.
So like I think that, and this kind of ties in with like something we were saying in an earlier episode, like the blend between Saturn and Uranus, is like I think that like part of the key to like taking power with your free will is to expect for your will to be taken from you. I know that sounds
Ooh.
contradictory. I know that sounds contradictory, and it might not be the case in every situation, but like if there is a planetary influence, it will manifest. And you can do everything you can to steer that energy, but you don't really have control over how it will manifest a lot of the time. You can utilize its manifestation, you can steer its manifestation, and you can control how you react. But like, can you
I mean, I
choose?
feel like this just comes back to like, well, maybe not comes back, but like it brings up the idea of like the intersection of like magic and astrology, which
Right,
in a way comes back to like what we were saying about fortune and spirit, because really it's the same idea that we're using our consciousness to overcome circumstance or fortune as it falls. So I think that, you know, to the extent that we believe we can have an influence on our environment, we can. Granted, I wouldn't say it's 100% because I also believe that the moment that you're the most confident about something going right is the moment right before it's about to go wrong.
right.
So there's an idea of like, you know, releasing expectations with things, because like one phrase that's always stuck in my mind is like expectations create resistance. And I think
Right.
it's so
You
true.
have to expect your will to be taken from you. Like
But
you
we
have,
have to expect our will to be done like without reservation, that like I don't know if we should like automatically just have that like totally it's gonna be
I
taken.
think
And
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Maybe taken isn't the best word, but
Just
like
like
what you were
relieved.
saying, where
You know what I
like,
mean?
right, like taken, just because you don't have control over it doesn't mean that your will isn't still being carried out in some way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
It just, what you picture, what you imagine, is not always going to be the case, unfortunately. But then also, like, I, so we, astrology, in the sense of planetary relationships or correlations or influence, however you feel it is, with Earth. I think that the planets have definitely influenced Earth long before humans were around, long before we could measure astrology, you know?
Hmm.
And so like that might have manifested in weather, mass extinctions. Like I would be interested to see like what was going on in the planets when the dinosaurs got kicked
Mm.
out, you know?
Must have been a pretty
So
heavy Mars transit.
right, mixed between like Mars, Uranus. I feel like
Pluto.
yeah, Pluto. I
Yeah.
feel like Jupiter too, like
They
expand.
probably all went right in one sign, like they said, they all aligning Capricorn and the world's destroyed, and they all align in Cancer and the world's created. It's probably just some
Yeah,
crazy
yeah.
stuff. Who knows?
Uh-huh. That is true. But so if the planets influenced Earth before humans were around, I ask the question, do you think that Earth has an influence on other planets? So like people are completely out of the picture here. We're not talking about somebody born on Jupiter with Earth as a planet in their natal chart. I'm saying like if we're talking about physicality, if we're looking at weather patterns and stuff like that, do you think that Earth had an influence? It was mutual. I think yes. And by that, what are we made from? Earth. Our bodies come from the earth. We are just long descendants of these molecules, the prebiotic soup that got charged in the right way and fell into the right lipid pouch that ended up becoming a fucking human being in some way. Um, I since we're made of that, and since Earth itself influenced the other planets, I think that that by proxy means that we have the power to influence how that planetary energy is received within Earth.
Mhm. I feel like this idea that consciousness itself like centralizes creation. Like you can look at, astrology from a geocentric perspective, but you could also look at it from a heliocentric perspective. Or there's even astrologies that look at the astrology from Mars or Jupiter. Like you can look at your chart from Mars's perspective. Like they've done, not they've done, sorry, let me reword that part. Like you can look at different planetary centric charts. And I think that really speaks to the idea that if there's consciousness that centers itself on anything, the universe will generate some code to make something happen there for the consciousness to see it. Because it's like you said at the beginning with Schrodinger's box, it's like if you open the box up, you're going to find out no matter what. So if you peer through the veil, right, and you go deeper into a new layer, the universe is just going to create something, right? I think that just speaks to like the fractal nature of the universe and consciousness itself. But this idea of this continual generation being based on making, but like what's more is like it's making an image to generate it based off of your perspective from where you are when you observe it. Like that Mars centered chart is it's going to just automatically have things to say about Mars. My
Right.
birth chart right where I was when I was born is just automatically going to be about me.
Right. And like part of the thing is that like there is no such thing as an objective experience.
Mm.
Nothing about your life is objective. Nothing at all. And that's something that really pisses me off with scientists is like they think that they're like these like objective like people for like maybe not scientists, skeptics. They think that they're all high and mighty and objective and like the way that they approach things. But like, dude, like there is no such thing as objectivity. You can only see that in a reflection of your subjective experience. And that is something that astrology does give. It's an objective picture of your subjective experience.
Yeah.
There is a story about an astrologer. I cannot find the name. I cannot figure out who, but one of his like apprentices had like a challenging Mars transit coming up, and the like astrologer was like, "Oh my gosh, like he could die." And so instead of just letting this Mars transit like take its course, the astrologer threw like a hot coal at one of his apprentices and made him catch it. And like that was the release of that Mars transit. I 110% think that you can do that. I think that you can welcome, like, particularly with like negative transits, I think that you can welcome a controlled manifestation. Will it always work? Maybe, maybe not, you know? Like if you have a difficult like Mars Saturn transit coming up and you're like, oh, okay, like I'll draw some blood like as an offering in exchange, maybe not as an offering, but like I'll draw some blood and this will be the manifestation. Like that might work. But then also, like, what if a totally different like Mars Saturn theme comes up? Like you're driving and you get pulled over. You're speeding and you get a ticket. You know, it's
Well, that would suck. Whoa.
you good?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So then like it's just like very open-ended. Yeah, I mean, I feel like humanity sucks. It's not the worst thing ever, but
Jeez, this misanthropist over here. I have hope. I do. Even though some people wanted to disagree about that on Twitter a few weeks ago, I think that I think we're headed for a beautiful future.
I agree. I think that there is
I'm
I
choosing to wear the rose-colored glasses because I believe that is
exactly.
helping us.
No, fucking exactly. Like
I'm kind of
I
kidding.
huh?
I'm kind of kidding.
Well, I mean, I have faith in the future of astrology. I'm really like the thing is that like sure like all of the like fake astrology stuff like Scorpio, Taurus, like this year you guys are gonna fall in love and like there's like no this is baseless. It's based in nothing.
Yeah.
Like literally nothing. So like I think that like astrology, it will be very, very difficult to have astrology like recognized by the masses without it simultaneously being like misrepresented by like your average person, your average astrologer, because there's astrology that's fun and there's astrology that's entertaining, and then there's astrology that's educational. There's astrology that is empirical. And like that is the threshold that a lot of people stop at, where they're like, oh, I don't want to read ancient text. Oh, I don't want to watch a 4-hour lecture on somebody translating these ancient texts. So like that's kind of the trade-off we get, that like if astrology is going to increase in popularity, we're also going to have like an increase in like mainstream media. But at the same time, like we can have a smaller population of astrologers and people talking about astrology while astrology itself is being advanced and furthered. I think that the future of astrology is quite bright.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, a little off topic, but like I think that just like the fact that we're in the renaissance of the entire history that we have surviving of the human astrological tradition, but now with technology, it's just getting spread and immortalized in a way that it has never been before, and that you can't stop it now.
Right. I agree. And I think that like we're really reaching a point where like big astrologers have the power and the influence to redefine astrology in the public eye and like have astrology perceived as, oh, bestie.
It was getting close. I wasn't there. I'm here though.
No, I know, but I'm just like, oh, like, baby, I feel so bad.
We're almost done though, right?
I think so. What time is it?
3:03 for me.
When did we start?
I'm not sure.
Oh, 11:25 or 35.
Up to you.
Okay. We'll wrap up this episode. Not like in the next like 5-10 minutes. I was thinking maybe like a 40-minute episode, 45. Okay. I just don't want you to be like like dozing off like as I'm. Do you have it on like speakers view?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
A
Good.
necessity.
Okay. Good. Um
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I mean, there's a whole other part of this debate too, because there's the question of, if it is determined, are these stars or planets causing these events to happen, or are they signaling the events to happen? So like in Babylon, they were using the omens as an interpretation of like this mirror, right? So the sky is going to show us a reflection of what's happening here, but is that just happening as like literally just a mirror? It's like connected but not connected, right? In that way, it's like fluid, or is it the causal link, right? And in some ways, I'm inclined to think that it's a cause, because we know that the influence of all the planetary spheres trickles down and reaches the moon, and then she anchors those final energies in. So it has that motion of trickling down and being a cause of some sort. But at the same time, you wonder though, like, well, how does that feed in with, what say we have, you know?
well, and then like are the planets the only things correlating to this, or like if we go outside of our solar system, outside of our galaxy even, are we going to see other galaxies that relate to these positions that like align with the astrology that's established? And so like that is a question that I personally have yet to answer, like myself.
I
It's like,
think we're about to enter the age of like deep space astrology. Like if no
I
one's working
agree.
on that now, like I'm very curious to like look into researching black holes and stellar evolution and things like that.
I agree. I think that would be super fascinating.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. I know that like NASA has been working on like a like map of the universe kind of a deal. So I don't know.
The new Themamundi.
Yeah, right. Yeah. What was I saying? You can go
About
ahead.
measuring deep space
No, it was before
astrology.
that. It was before that. It's okay. You can say what you wanted to say.
No, no, no. I mean, what were you gonna say? It was like you were thinking of what's beyond us and those having it. Were you
Oh,
thinking of
the
those like
causal.
galaxies having influences here on Earth? Or are you saying there are
Yeah.
other solar systems that have their own planetary spheres and zodiacal belts and things like that?
Well, I'm saying that like within our galaxy alone, like there are trillions of different solar systems.
Right.
And like within those solar systems, they may have their own astrological system, but the position of those solar systems in relation to Earth might also align with the astrology that is represented in the planets and the archetypes associated with that. Does that make more sense? That
Mhm.
like not only is there their own system within each solar system, but each individual solar system is a part of a bigger system.
Right.
And so like that like trips me up when we're like, oh well, the planets themselves are causing events on Earth. Because like
Well, yeah, I mean, that's even hard to say on its own because we know the energy comes from the fixed stars before it even reaches the planets.
right,
So the planets aren't, they're an intermediary in terms of the hierarchy of the planetary spheres because, it comes from unity, divinity, and then it comes to the stars and constellations and then the planets. So if they're initiating anything, it's nothing of their own. It's already something being recycled from a higher layer, right? The
exactly.
stars.
Exactly. And so like where is the cap then? You know? And like this is where you get into like ideas of more like Gnosticism, where there's like a supreme being and then like the like levels of management kind of like trickle down,
Mm.
and like what we are directly like managed by would be like the planets, but like above the planets there's like the fixed stars, and like above that there's like a like is it the demiurge? Is that no, the demiurge is like corrupt. There's like a supreme
Well,
being.
there's like Sophia, who's like the ultimate divine wisdom, but then eventually like the demiurge, there had to be the architect of the universe of physicality itself. So it was kind of like there's this sub creator, like the creator of the creator, that then constructed physical reality as we see it and the astrological scheme as we see it. And then even from there, the planets, they were archons, they were rulers, like not just gods that, were watching over us, but that were keeping us imprisoned here by keeping us trapped, keeping our souls stuck here in an incarnation.
Right. And something also like very fascinating about that principle too, and just like that time period with like ideas of fate and fortune, is that like even the supreme entities were subject to fate and fortune.
Mhm.
They are energies that surpass any consciousness. It just is. And I think that that is so fascinating.
Mhm.
But also, like on the other side of that coin, are the planets gods, or are there gods that manipulate energies that are simply reflected in the planets?
Mm.
You know, like are the are the gods like delivering their will, so to say, um like into our reality? And because we only have our perception, we are limited to perception. We have nothing more than that. There is no such thing as knowledge. It's all stuff that we perceive and can measure. Like it does not exist
Well, then,
without.
that brings us to like gnosis too, though, the idea of like true revealed knowledge or wisdom.
You want to talk about that a little bit more?
Well, it's kind of the extent of it because beyond that, it exists beyond us, it's that tapping into something that we call truth, right? And ultimate reality, but it's something that we can't really ascribe language to because it just transcends that. So
Right.
there is a layer, whether platonically, he called them like the forms, just like the perfect pure archetypes. Astrologically, we could probably, give the closest description of like this 12 signs. Um,
Does does perfection exist?
it has to, there
In
has
what
to be a
in
pure,
in what sense?
that we see chaos around us, but that it's only coming as a result from as an imitation of the perfect form, which exists as something greater than what we see in our limited perception.
But why wouldn't quote unquote perfection be comfort in chaos?
Well, maybe not saying that it's not, but I'm saying that there does have to exist a perfect state that is somehow transcendent, that exists on a higher level than what we're experiencing physically in the material world. All of this is an imitation of another archetype that exists beyond it. You know, we can talk about blue, we can talk about red, we can talk about a tree, right? Because we know what trees look like, and we know different things that we call red, but what is that red or tree imitating really? What pattern is it following? You know, like you could think that the human genome would be like the form, like the platonic form, like the divine archetype, and we are all imitations of that. And not that we are, you know, imperfect, because we're all unique creations of the same thing in that way, but really it's like, man, I don't know, we're getting a little off topic here.
I mean, was there like a topic?
I don't know. I mean,
Well, I mean, I like where this is going though, because I think it's relevant to the discussion, you know? Like, I'm not, by no means do I think that I have any authority to say, oh, this is my opinion on fate and free will, and all be all, you know? Like, I would hope that our listeners are like engaging with this and like shaping their own like attitudes or like questioning their own ideas around like fate and free will.
Mhm.
And I think that like also like you can 100% just be like, yeah, throw it in the towel. Whatever happens to me happens to me. I have no desire to try and control like or impact any like negative event. And that was like the energy with like determinism. Like that was like the ideal person, was someone who would just what there was a specific term for it, but someone who would just like take fate as it comes. They know that the bad things happen to them and they're
I
just
mean, the
not.
Stoics.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What was the term for like the all enlightened who could do that, who could take just the worst fate and make with what is due?
Was there? There might. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. It's not very important. I'm like pretty sure there was a name for it.
I just know that's like basic Stoic philosophy. I don't know if there's a term. There probably could be, but I don't know.
I don't know either. Um, right. Well, where I was even
It,
going.
it's something we all have to chew on. There's never a definitive. There never will be. So get
Right. And
over
I
yourselves, because we're not gonna figure it out.
right. And I think that that's like the fun part about it. It's like there is no answer. Like there isn't. Period, point blank. You can be as convinced as you want of your own answer. You can dedicate yourself to your own person. I don't know if humanity will ever reach that.
Hmm.
I think that there may be plenty of spirits who, or sorry, it said my internet was unstable, so I thought I'd pause. I think
Yeah, you're all good on my end.
okay. I think that there may be like energies that can leave the planetary spheres and maybe leave this dimension even, and like figure that out. But like, is that universally true? Excuse me. You know, like if the multiverse is in fact true, the laws of this reality do not carry over. So we are limited in our perspective. And like I think that that is something so powerful that like people really need to understand, is that like you can, and like the future also is objective. Like the future is a very objective thing. We have no subjective grasp of the future. But when it comes to experiencing it, it's a subjective experience. And that also like leads into some of these issues with fate and free will, is that like you can try and control something that's objective. Like if you're going to try and manipulate your future, you are trying to control something objective, and that's hard. You have to cater it to the subjective experience, and it takes a lot of consciousness. And the best way to predict the future is to reflect on the past.
Yeah. Um, yeah, honestly, at this point, I mean, this discussion is just so huge. It's like we didn't even touch half of what there is, didn't even touch a portion of what there is to say about it. But yeah, I just feel like all we can do is just keep, living our lives and tracking the charts if we're curious. But that's it.
Right. No. Yeah. Are we wrapped up for today?
Do you have anything else you want to say?
Um, I mean, I can question the fabrication of the universe for like the next 3 days. Like, I like love philosophy. I'm taking a class on existentialism this semester.
Mm,
Mhm. Um, yeah, so maybe after this semester, I'll come back and I'll have some refined points. But I think
mm,
for today, we've about summed it up. I think that you have the power that you give yourself, though, in a
true.
lot of ways, like whether it be in relationships or spirituality, whatever it may be, the power that you give yourself is the power that you have.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Hmm. And if you think that your power comes from the gods, then I think that that still applies with like discussions around fate and free will and like being able to manipulate reality. Because like by that, like you might consider yourself a semblance of a god.
Yeah, all right. Well, I think that's just gonna about wrap up our discussion on fate and time and free will and philosophy and existence and all of the things. So I hope you guys were entertained um, with this discussion. We didn't, like we said, didn't really have anything super planned out. But yeah, thank you for tuning in and listening if you're still here.
We did have things planned out, but we're not doing them.
Eclipses. I'm
Yeah, this eclipse
sorry.
energy.
And
When the eclipses were in my first seventh house axis, I was fucking living, dude. I like had so much fun on every eclipse last year. But now that they're in Taurus and Scorpio,
mm,
I'm like lethargic and drained and
mm,
feeling just the. And I think that that's common.
mm.
But yeah, next week we'll have a little bit more energy for you guys. I just finally finished the end of the semester, so we'll have our heads on straight for y'all next week.
Yeah, awesome. Well, until then, you guys can stay in touch with us through our Twitter pages, through Instagram, and definitely give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy listening. And we will see you guys next week at some point.
Yeah. Oh God, I'm sorry. Yes, like and subscribe. Let us know what your thoughts are. If you have any video recommendations, feel free to comment them, or like video requests. That's what I wanted to say, not recommendations.
Mm.
Yeah, but happy stargazing. Mercuranians out. Let this eclipse at least have mercy.
I'm praying.
Yeah, right.
All right, cool. We'll
Prayer.
see you
We
guys
didn't
next
even
week.
talk about prayer.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good one, guys.